In a city, our MC rushes to make it onto a train. His name is Satou. He works even on weekends at a game company, because there is a lot of work and nobody does it. So what does he do? He works himself to death. A coworker later walks up to him, handing Satou even more work to handle. Satou groans, but eventually agrees to finish the work. He works through yet another night again. He no longer needs pockets. He has eye bags. His work is now complete. Emails are sent. He can finally get some sleep. This guy needs a vacation, but Truckkin wasn't available, so he had to do it the old-fashioned way. Dying in his sleep, he wakes up in a wasteland that looks just like the game he was working on. He marvels at his new body and game interface, but is cut short by an arrow to the face. The arrow was shot by an army of lizard men. They fire a barrage of arrows towards Satou, who can do nothing but hide. As a last-ditch effort, he activated his meteor skill. It was super effective. Satou managed to wipe out all the lizard men and gain their levels and loot. Just when he thinks he is in the clear, he is met by a lizard general who is still a beef with him. The lizard hands Satou his sword so that they can duel to the death. However, Satou doesn't know how to use a sword, so he throws it. It was super effective. Satou can finally rest. He can now check out his crazy stats and skills. He has regeneration, super speed, super jump, all the superpowers. He's also rich now from all the money he got from the lizard men's bodies. In the morning, he decides to head towards the warrior's fort. On his way there, he bumps into a wyvern. He is knocked to the ground with a loud thud, but he remains unharmed. He throws a rock at the wyvern to chase it away, but in doing so, he pushes the wyvern towards warrior's fort. It is his fault that the people there have to deal with the wyvern now, so he decides to go and help. The soldiers of warrior's fort manage to take down the wyvern, but one of the soldiers is thrown high into the air. Satou leaps up to catch her. As she's unconscious, the green-haired soldier wakes up in Satou's arms. They are currently hanging off the side of a cliff, so she's a little startled. Satou hops up the mountain and puts the girl down. Sarah tells her name, and she tells him her whole life story. Her name is Xena. If you were wondering, the two were interrupted by an aerial aim at Satou's face. Satou tries to get himself out of this by activating the Talk no Jutsu skill. He manages to convince them that he's a traveling merchant who lost his merchandise. Xena's friends lower their weapons and agree to take Satou to town to get him accommodated. On the way to town, they notice the defeated wyvern. Its scales can be used to make good armor, but its meat tastes horrible. No one aside from slaves would want to eat it. Satou is surprised to learn about the existence of not only slaves but magical beings like elves as well. Once they are in town, Iona takes Satou to get registered and they use a magic stone to look up Satou's information. The stone says Satou is only level 1, but Satou is really above level 300. He pays for the paperwork and receives his city visa. If you are caught without a visa in the city, you will be fined 1 silver. If you can't pay, you become a slave. As Satou leaves the station, he is approached by a young girl who implores him to visit their inn. Her name is Martha and her mother owns an inn in city. She's very assertive in her sales tactics and convinced Satou to stay at their inn. Satou orders some food and asks about the Demon Lord. If the Demon Lord revives, it will attack the opposite side of the country first, so they're pretty safe for now. Satou asks if there are any stores nearby which would sell ready-tailored clothes. Martha enthusiastically offers to show him the way. As they walk along the market, Satou notices some demi-humans and is fascinated. He sees that they are being attacked and steps in to save them from the abuse. Martha is shocked that Satou would show kindness to demi-humans. They are generally hated by all the people there, so his behavior is out of the ordinary. The two carry on through the market and stop at several shops. Satou ends up buying a dragon mask and wig from a shop. Once they return to the inn, a little girl runs up to greet Satou. She has prepared his room for him and Satou thanks her for her work. Dinner time comes and the food is as delicious as expected. Satou ends up overeating and gets a stomachache. He begins to wonder if this is actually a dream. He has never seen any of this before. He has never tasted food like that either, and he is able to feel pain. All this points to one conclusion, but he can't be bothered with that. All he wants is to live a fun life this time around. Figuring things out can come later. The next day, Xena visits Satou at the inn. She's off duty today and wants to spend some time with him, so she offers to show him around town. Xena introduces him to the culinary world of Syria. They try all types of pastries and delicacies throughout the day. Last on their list, fried bat wings dipped in miso. But as they were about to eat, a child bumps into Xena, causing her to ruin her blouse. Luckily, a street magician pops up and offers to help them clean off her clothes with magic. The magician uses a spell called Soft Wash to clean out the stain. She then uses another spell to dry off the clothes. Satou is incredibly interested in the chanting her spells. It seems to be very complicated and upon inquiry is proved to be very complicated. It takes many years of training to be able to use magic. Xena is happy to have her win magic, even if it took a lot of work to get it. Their next stop is the temple, where they see a mural of the hero battling the Demon King. The hero holds a holy sword which glows a dazzling blue, and Satou wonders about the title of hero. He discovered that he had a lot of titles, including God Killer and Destroyer, but Satou decides to lay low for the meantime. The carriage Xena and Satou are riding shakes a little, and Xena falls into Satou. Satou stumbles upon an execution. The priest is selling limited edition holy stone. These stones are to be used to stone the slaves to death to drive away demons. Satou, using his detection skills, quickly realizes that this is a sham. The crowd is being instigated to go along with it, so he sets about kidnapping the instigators once he has taken down the last one. He recalls that when he first entered the city, he could sense that there was one demon. The demon appears and casts a spell which creates a dungeon around everyone in the area. Satou wakes up to find himself stuck in the dungeon with the slaves from before. He quickly deduces that they must need to escape the trap and enlist the help of the slaves. In doing so, he names them Lisa, Pochi and Tama. He provides them with some clothes and medicine. The group set out to traverse the dungeon with Tama and Pochi on lookout and Lisa as the vanguard. They come across a grasshopper-like monster and without wasting much time, Satou kills the monster. Satou notices that the others aren't leveling up as much, so he decides to split up the tasks in order to balance out the experience gained, and the new setup seems to be working pretty well. They continue to grind experience until they run out of stamina. Thus, Satou decides that it is time for a break. The girls rest while Satou watches over them back to the grind. They discover more of the dungeon and kill a lot more monsters. Lise asks if she can cook some frog meat for them. Satou is apprehensive, but he gives his permission. Satou receives the first bite and surprisingly, and it tastes like chicken. They later run into a slime and Satou has no idea how to deal with it. Lisa, on the other hand, has that pro-gamer knowledge she knows to aim for the slime core to defeat it. They move on to a room with people trapped in cocoons. They are free of Viscount, a slave trader, and they were about to free one guy. But he just had to be difficult about it. They end up helping him anyway, but they come across a battle. The guy claims to be 100 times stronger than the slaves, but in reality he's just a new. The slaves manage to take down a lot of the slimes and Satou rushes to save Xena. Xena is surprised that Satou has all this gamer knowledge, but he explains that Lisa is the one who taught him. Some soldiers find a treasure chest and immediately try to open it, but surprise surprise, the demon was hiding in the chest. The demon hypnotizes the people there, causing them to attack each other. Satou and the few others that could use magic are unaffected by the demon hypnosis. The Viscount uses mid-level fire magic to attack. The demon is not very effective. Satou puts on his mask and wig to disguise himself before he uses his ultimate weapon, a rock. The rock is thrown at the demon and knocks it back. The demon gets scared by the power of the rocks and summons its master, the Demon Lord, and once the Demon Lord arrives, he eats the demon. The Demon Lord squares up against Satou. He's no new, so he goes all out from the start. Satou pulls out his real ultimate weapon, a holy sword. But he can't use the holy sword, so he resorts to magic. He then remembers his other legendary weapon and managed to use that to destroy the Demon Lord in his single strike. We later see Satou on the surface. He is being thanked by the people who he rescued earlier. The slave trader offers him two of his slaves, Lulu and Arisa. After they have introduced themselves to one another, they all prepare to have dinner. Satou asks what they would like to eat. Arisa and Lulu are surprised that Satou cares enough to provide them with food. They are used to barely being fed, so this level of care is new to them. The food they are served is delicious. They are elated and scarf it down. As they eat, Satou realizes that they don't have proper clothes for themselves, so it gets up to go buy something for them. Satou returns to the girls with the capes he had bought for them. They seem to really like the capes. They return to the inn and are greeted by Martha. Satou asks if there are any rooms available for the others, but it has been booked up already. The crowd looks at the demi-humans with disdain. They really don't like demi-humans, but Arisa manages to calm them down. They end up using the stable for Lisa, Pochi and Tama. While Arisa and Lulu stay in Satou's room, Satou gets ready for bed when Lulu sheepishly tries to help him change. He declines her help and tells her to just take care of her own clothes. However, Satou turns around to find both Arisa and Lulu completely naked. Arisa asks if he wants them to service him, but Satou isn't trying to get a visit from them, so he declines and goes to bed. The night is very peaceful and Arisa entered chat. Satou almost gives in, but he manages to resist. He asked Arisa for an explanation and she explains that she fell in love with him at first sight. She was also Japanese, so after seeing a Japanese guy, she couldn't resist. She died in Japan and was reincarnated, so her situation is a little different from Satou's. The next day, Satou was woken up by Martha barging into his room. Seriously, has no one heard of privacy? She brought Xena in, and Xena, upon seeing Arisa naked in bed with Satou, runs out of the room and Satou jumps out the window to chase after her, and with the help of his talk no jutsu, he's able to convince her that nothing happened. He later sends Arisa and the others shopping for the things they will need. Later, Satou intends to go looking for a place for the others to stay without discrimination, and Xena is all too willing to help him with it. They head to an odd job shop to try to get some info. There they meet Nandi. She's a worker and offers to help. She gets out a list of available properties and looks through it to find something they can use. The first house had the previous owner killed by the crime guild, so Satou declined. The second was right next to a brothel, which seemed like too much excitement for him. The third was literally a hideout for the crime guild, secret passage and everything. They decide to give up on the search for today. Nanda tells Xena about a play going on in the plaza, and it would be the perfect place for a date. On the way to the play, they meet up with the others who now have new outfits. Arisa dyed her hair blonde because people don't like pink hair over there. Satou also buys some reading cards to teach Tama and Pochi how to read. Later Satou and Xena are alone at last. They are interrupted again by Xena's soldier friends who are injured. Xena starts to heal them immediately. They were fighting fang ants. A swarm of fang ants soon attacked the city. Satou orders the girls to defend everyone. They cut down the ants one by one, but a few manage to break through. The ants attacked Nandi, and Satou rushes to help her. The floor is covered in ant acid so she can't climb out of the hole, but vines from her manager wrap around her and lift her out of the hole. Manager is an elf, which is rare to see. Satou meets up with Xena, who now has to return to work to clean up the mess of the ants. They bid each other farewell before he is confronted by a soldier who wants to take the cores that Lisa collected. Satou was okay with selling them, but he forces the soldier to sign a contract for the stones in order to avoid being scammed. Later that night, Satou was walking down the street when he meets two people whom he had saved back in the dungeon. They offer to buy him a drink. One thing leads to another and he ends up in a brothel. On his way back home, he stumbles upon some shadows attacking someone. He leaps into action with his gun and destroys them. He later breaks into the odd job store, where Nadia is hoping the manager will make a move on her. Satou reveals that one of the people he had saved was an elf. The little elf is called Mia. Back at the end, Arisa is upset that Satou would dare go to a brothel. Arisa's squealing wakes Lulu up. Satou asks her how she's feeling and gives her medicine for the pain. Satou decides to go check up on Mia. In the meantime, he arrives at the store and meets Nadia, who is tidying up. Mia is still sleeping. She only seems to have mana depletion, so she should wake up soon. Satou hears some movement in Mia's room. She must be awake, so Nadia goes to check on her. Nadia tells Mia that the manager, whose name is Yulia by the way, is the owner of the store. Mia seems to recall Yulia. She then asks about Satou, who is standing outside the door. Once she sees him, she asks if he is a spirit user, but Satou has never met his spirit before. Mia can see spirits because she has the gift of spirits. The spirits are fluffy and sparkly, according to Mia's description. Satou has been there for a while, so he wants to take his leave, but Mia doesn't want to let him go. Later, Satou tells the girls about Mia, and they all seem eager to meet her. They all go to meet Mia. She's a little shy at first, but she warms up to them in no time. Later, Satou wants to buy a cart. After all, you can't really be a merchant without a cart to carry your merchandise. So Nadia offers him a used cart which he could buy. He doesn't know how to drive one, so he asks Lulu to teach him how to do it. While on the ride, Satou quickly levels up his coachman's skills, but they come across this weird bird. I don't trust this bird. They return to the city and Mia greets them. She's finally able to walk around on her own and has one request: honey buns. That bird shows up again. Even Tama thinks it's weird. Back inside the store, we hear a little more about Mia's backstory. Long story short, she was imprisoned, then escaped, then hunted down, then here. The people hunting her are relentless, even sending monsters to go after her. A loud scream is heard downstairs, and as they rush down, that weird bird is there. Weirder than usual until it transforms into something else. The weird bird turns into a weird skeleton. Satou tries to attack it, but it uses shadow magic to counter. He has come to collect Mia and he is going to get her. He encourages Satou to chase after him if he has the courage to do so, and opens a shadow portal to escape. Mia has dragged through the portal and Satou jumps through in pursuit. The skeleton has created a dungeon of his own, and it has 200 floors, which one must conquer to arrive at the end. But Satou skipped all of that and appears at the end anyway. But the skeleton is like, no way. I spent way too much time building this thing. We're going to go through it the right way and teleport Satou to the beginning. Satou makes his way up the dungeon normally until he reaches a plant room with a little girl. Satou manages to make his way up to a group of homunculi, but they stood no chance. He finds another plant room with a little girl. He makes it to the top floor, where a group of stronger homunculi are waiting for him. The homunculi are trying a little too hard to beat him. They are bleeding from the eyes and everything. Unsurprisingly, it doesn't last long and Satou moves on to face the final boss. However, the skeleton has no intention of fighting. All he wants is for Satou to kill him. Skeleton was a reincarnation, but after his death in this world he became immortal, and ever since then he has been looking for someone to kill him. Well, Satou kills him and rescues Mia, but Skeleton's death seems to have activated a self-destruct sequence. Satou now has to rescue everyone in the dungeon. He runs with everything he has and just barely manages to escape the ensuing tidal wave. The others manage to find him, and they are all pleased to see him alive. The homunculi also swear to serve Satou for the rest of their lives, so the harem grows. Satou is seen in a bar. He flaunts his riches by buying a round of drinks for everyone there. The people are impressed by Satou, and when he's about to leave, the hostess takes him to a room upstairs. She's quite insistent. The next day, Satou is being admonished by the girls for last night's activities. Their gripes are however interrupted by a scuffle going on in the middle of the road. The aggressor is that scammer from before he knocked the commenter down, but after seeing Satou, he is intimidated into leaving. Satou gives the commoner a magic potion to heal himself. It's good to be generous, but he's going to run out of magic potions soon, so he decides to learn how to make them. He's able to make high-quality potions without much effort thanks to being able to level up his skills, but a problem remains. The potions gradually degrade unless they are kept in a special vial. In order to purchase some vials, he decides to go to a nearby town. On his map of the town, there are still some blank areas, so he's a little early about going to those areas. He gets directions to an alchemy shop, and out of the shop comes a hooded man. He's trying to hide his identity, but I would recognize that scammer mustache anywhere. He enters the store and talks to the clerk. She seems nice. She tells Satou that the man that just left had already taken all the vials, so she couldn't sell him any. That night Satou ventures into the unmarked areas on the map. He passes through a barrier, which puts him on the receiving end of a barrage of attacks from the witch's apprentice. He apologizes for the intrusion, but the girl is unrelenting. She only stops once the witch shows up and tells her to stop. They invite him into their home and tell him about the pact they have with the town. They are required to provide 300 vials of magic potions in exchange for protection from bandits and criminals. The next day, when the little witch is trying to deliver the vials, she's attacked and the vials are destroyed just before the deadline, and the entire town stock has been bought up. Satou convinces the Count of Muki to let him replace the missing vials. They head to the pottery house, and with Satou's skill level they are able to make the vials. All that is left is to put them in the kiln. Everything seems to be going smoothly, but we all know it doesn't work like that. And of course the scammer comes running in with his scammy ways. He makes up some rules and proceeds to destroy the kiln and presumably all the vials in it. He leaves with his head held high and taunts them about not being able to make the delivery anymore. However, Satou has already stored the vials in his inventory, but he can't bring them out because they are still very hot. He uses a blow spell to cool them down in his item box, and that's the vials are ready for use. They proceed to make the delivery, much to the dismay of the scammer and his accomplice. So they employ the greatest tactic. Ignore it and it will go away, but it fails. This time the legendary tactic is ineffective as the Count returns and puts a stop to their schemes. It gets a little violent, but with the matter settled, Satou and his friends continue on their journey across the lands. It still hasn't been 2 weeks yet, but he was enjoying his new life here.